All right, so I'm Dot. With us is Amy Hutchins. She is our, I just said your title, manuscript cataloging librarian here. So she is responsible for cataloging the manuscripts. In my role, I work primarily with, well, I won't say primarily. I work a lot with the digitized material. I have several ongoing digital humanities projects, and I've been involved in digitization projects that I've mentioned. But I also do a lot of work with the physical collections. I am trained as a medievalist. I have an MA in medieval studies with a focus in paleography and codicology. And one of my favorite things to do is to show our manuscripts to people who aren't here. So Coffee with the Codex is a great program that we started last year, and we're really excited to keep it going into this year. So what I am going to do is I have my my cell phone here. This is going to be interesting because this is actually a really big book. Let me go ahead and show you. This is a copy of the Decretals of Gregory IX, and it's very heavily glossed. And so we're going to be taking a look at that gloss. But it's a I'm glad Nick isn't here because I'm going to call this a chonky boy. Nick hates it when I say stuff like that. So it's a big book. This is my hand here, thick, it's heavy. The binding is 18th century wood, and sort of, I guess, quarter leather. So there's leather on the corners, and then there's sort of this fabric over the top, but it is wood. And so it's heavy. It's all heavy. The wood is heavy. The parchment is heavy. It's a big book, and my phone can only go so far away from the book. So hopefully this will work. So it is a copy of the Decretals. It's been heavily glossed using a set of glosses called the glossa, referred to as the glossa ordinaria. In the past, we've looked at a glossed psalter, and in that conversation, I also talked about the glossa ordinaria. It's a different glossa ordinaria. Glossa ordinaria just means ordinary gloss. It's sort of the main gloss that people use. And so in the Middle Ages, you had glossed psalters that had a psalter gloss that was the glossa ordinaria for psalters. And this is the glossa ordinaria for this text, which was it was a set of canon law written in 5 books under the order of Gregory IX by, his name is somewhere. And I'm sure those of you, there are many people here who know more than I do. So don't hesitate to write in the chat with questions or comments or to add anything. And Amy or I will catch it. By Raymond of Pen by order of Gregory IX. This copy was written in France between 1290 and 1299, so sort of the end of the 13th century. And I'm not sure exactly when. So Gregory IX was the Pope sort of in the early 1200s. So this would have been in the 100 years, I guess, or so, less than 100 years after the text was originally written. This was written. There were many other glosses, but this is the one that we have. However, one of the things that's interesting about this particular manuscript is that it continued to be glossed into the 16th century. So this was a book, we talk a lot about signs of use, and this was a book that was used quite a lot. And so let's go ahead and take a look. So the inside, we have notes on owners. So it was in the Phillips collection. Sir Thomas Phillips in the sort of the 19th century owned lots and lots and lots of books. And so you see him a lot. There's Phillips. We purchased this book, I think in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s. And it was part of several manuscripts that were purchased, I believe, I'm looking at Amy, with the help of the Schoenberg family, who, if you've been with us before, you know the LJS manuscripts, the Schoenberg collection, that's the same Schoenberg. So in the sort of early 2000s, we bought several books from there with their help. So it actually opens with leaves that have been added later. So I believe that these were added in the 14th century, but you can see that there are a lot of different hands here. So, and this is not unusual, right? To have books that are used over, oh, we've got Edward, 1234, thank you. So the decretals will 1234. I believe the Glossa Ordinaria was written in 1266, and then this manuscript is 1280, or between 1280 and 1299. And then you have, this is just one example of many that we'll see, where you have many different people writing, in this case, on leaves that were added. And here's another one. This is actually a table of contents here. On this smaller page, we have this table of contents, and as I mentioned, it has 5 books. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's sort of broken down into each little section of the larger chapters there. And then we have the actual start of the text itself. So I'm going to pause here because I see that we have a question from Alice in the chat. How did it end up stateside, and what's the parchment made of? So I am not an expert in identifying parchment, but I'm going to guess this is cow. Just for one thing, it's large. So because the sheets would be large, you want to have a large animal. It could be a sheep, but it doesn't, again, I'm not great at this. It just doesn't look like sheep to me, and it makes sense, I think, if it's in France, that it would be made of cow. However, there's been work done not on this manuscript, but on other manuscripts using both DNA and collagen analysis. And so I know that it actually could be sheep. I've seen, I'm not going to name any names, but people who pride themselves on being able to identify the animals and identifying the animal in parchment and then having it analyzed and discovering that they're wrong. So really the best way to know is through analysis. As far as how it got stateside, so we purchased it by Sam Fogg in London in 2007. It was also owned, apparently for a time, by someone in Melbourne, Australia. It was in Dublin in the 19th century, purchased by Sir Thomas Phillips after that. So it's sort of been all over, but we purchased it and brought it to the US in 2007. Right, so it starts with table of contents. Right, Amy said the table of contents is a 15th century edition. Yeah, it was definitely added later. A great sign that people were still using it, and they were using it enough that they needed that to help them figure out what was in there. So a couple of hundred years later. All right, and now here we actually have the start of some text. And this is a prologue. So this is where we're talking about, why are we writing this? And I haven't read this. I don't know, but even the prologue has some notes in the margin there. And so there's a few pages of a prologue, and according to the records that I have, the prologue specifically mentions scholars and students at the University of Paris. So one possibility is that it was written for the University of Paris. However, there are other scholars who believe that it was written in the south of France and may have been written for Montpellier or Toulouse, where they also had at this time universities where you could study canon law. So there's that. So this is where we hit the gloss. And this is, if you haven't seen a glossed manuscript before, this is what we mean by a gloss manuscript. So what's going on here? So you have the main text written in the center in a sort of larger script. And then the gloss is written around it in various ways. So this is a marginal gloss. So it's written around almost really in two columns. You can see there's sort of a column here, and then much as the main text is written in two columns, you have two columns here, and it's been planned, right? This is not something that somebody was like, oh, I'm going to write the text, and then maybe sometime later somebody will copy it, or will write in the gloss. This was planned clearly. There's ruling here, so the gloss was all planned out. But there are other glosses too. If we look in here, there's glosses between the columns, and there's also interlinear glosses, so words written up between the lines themselves. So it was planned out to be able to absorb all of these different glosses. The one that was planned, and also glosses that would be added later. So we have a comment from Peter. Gregory sent copies to the three big universities, Bologna, Paris, Oxford, and the reference to Paris is on 3 recto A, 3 lines up from the R. Let's see if we can see that. 3 recto. Do I have, oh no, does this not have numbers? Let's see. I think this is 1, 2, 3 recto. Oh, here, right there. So the reference to Paris, 3 lines up from the R. So up, it's in the, oop. That's very decorative there.
If you can hear me, it's just below the decoration. You can see the line ends with Universis Parisiis Comorantibus Salutem et Apostolicam Benedictionem.
Oh, yeah,
So
I see it.
So he's dedicating it to all the scholars at Paris.
Scholars at Paris, excellent. So that's where that's happening.
Yeah, and
Very cool.
Other copies will have Oxford or Bologna listed there.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. That is very cool. And Amy mentions these what the catalog or the record that I've seen calls coddles. These little things that are added. These are added. These decorative, and they only go through about folio 22. So so it's only in the first few pages of the manuscript, the ascenders. Let's see, Jim asks, gloss is different from marginalia in that it is planned. Yes, generally. So a gloss is a specific type of marginal note that is specifically made to go along with a main text, and often manuscripts are planned for them. Although sometimes I've seen copies of manuscripts that are sort of made to be glossed that weren't finished, where the gloss wasn't filled in or was only partially filled in. So that's definitely something that you see, as opposed to other manuscripts where you can tell that the margins were left blank and weren't ruled, but they were left blank so people could come in and fill them in. And we see that a lot, particularly in school texts. I know we've shown some school texts that do that, which is a different kind of animal from something like this, which was made as Peter Binkley, in his note further up the chat. Gregory made copies of these and sent them out to be used specifically because he was the Pope, and he was trying to like put his stamp on here's my law, so here's what we follow. So we're only on 3 recto. So let's keep moving through. The decorations, I think, are just to be decorative. I think they're just to sort of make a show of being attractive. I don't think they mean much more than that. Although it can help if you are reading them. It's like having a capital letter at the beginning of each paragraph, or like an indentation in a paragraph. And in this case, the capitals are going back and forth between being red and blue. I think mostly, it's hard to tell. Here's blue, and red, blue. Well, that one's blue and red, blue. Maybe it's just in each column, which can help you as you're reading. So it's not only for show, but it's also to help the reader stay focused on where they are, which is especially important here because it is the writing is quite small. You can also see, for example, here, there are sort of paragraph marks in the middle that might also serve the same purpose.
Dot, there's also a good question earlier from Heidi asking about this manuscript being a full copy of another which had all the glosses. And I think that is what we would expect, that the
Yes.
glosses and the main text would be traveling together, and you would copy one manuscript from another,
Yes.
making an exact copy as far as that's possible when you're making a manuscript copy.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I think that you would expect that. Although certainly you could also have it where you had the main text and you had the gloss in two different manuscripts and you copied them together. But it's also having a complete manuscript that you just copy with both the main text and the gloss is possible. Oh, Jan is asking about the black marks. Those are just decorations. The ascenders on these up here.
So they're adding those feathers to letters like D and H and B that have sort of stems that rise up from the letter. They're elaborating on those.
Yeah. And they are just to be decorative. So here are some more examples of additional notes that are being sort of added later on. I don't know how much later. I don't know. But anyway, they were not afraid of drawing in their manuscripts, writing in their manuscripts, making their own notes. This was definitely like made to be used like that. So I'm going to flip ahead a little bit. So here's more, but at some point we are going to lose the decorative feathers up top. And it's sort of interesting. You see that a fair amount where someone will start to do something and then they will lose interest or something. And then here, there aren't going to be any more of these throughout there. So we're going very quickly and we're still quite early. So the four chapters the 4 books that we have in this book include chapters on the judges and on I looked this up, trials. There's a whole book on betrothal and matrimony. And then the consanguinity, which has tables of consanguinity and affinity. And I want to turn to that because those tables are always sort of interesting to look at. So this is 241 through 261. Yet again, I fear that, here we go. This manuscript doesn't have folio numbers on it, Amy. So it's a little hard. However, someone has helpfully put chapter numbers up at the top. So here we are in chapter 4, which is where I want to be. I just want to, hold on. I have some of these guys here. So if we look at the bottom here again, more of this added gloss. So this was, all of this across the bottom was added at some point later. So really continuous use of this manuscript through the, past the 13th century and all the way into the 16th century. So I'm going to see if we can find oh, look at that. That's nice. Haven't seen that a lot. There hasn't been room for it, but there's some shape in the marginal gloss itself is being shaped. All right. Let's see. Oh, so Edward has shared his page on this work there. So there's a link there. I should have taken a look before, but I will take a look. Look at that. Let's see. Oh, look at that. I lied. Here we have more of our friend who came and added these. I wonder why he did that here, because he just starts up. Huh. Let's see. And there's more here. This is interesting. The layout is very, and I wonder if this has, maybe someone out there knows, does the layout in this section have anything to do with the content, or is it just that there's more space and so the scribe is having a little fun? I think that's really neat that there's more, and I think there's some other, let's see. I was sort of hoping I would just come across a table, because I know that they're here.
The diagrams are
You know?
exactly between books 4 and 5 dots. So if you get to the point where the
okay.
numbers switch from 4 to 5, I think it'll be right there.
There we go. Thank you, Amy. This is why I like having Amy here, because she knows things that I don't know. So that's very nice. All right. Oh my heavens. All right. This isn't it, but I just love this. Look at that. This is so nice. And I think this is less faded than the front, so you can see a little bit better that decorative here. So this is chapter 5 or book 5. This is where we're starting book 5. So I just want to take it. Oh, and look at that. That S is that's really nice. Oh, that's really nice. I like that, it was really it's a functional book. It's a book that's made to be read and made to be used and referenced, but they still took the time. Here we go. They still took the time to make it attractive. And I love that. So here are a couple of charts. And of course, consanguinity is you didn't want to marry someone that you were too closely related to. You had to keep the blood. I don't know a nice way to say that. So they had charts that would come up. So you could marry maybe a cousin, but not a close cousin. You don't want to marry your brother or sister. And so this is an example of a consanguinity chart. And here, I'm not sure what this is, but something related to that. Well, I see father. Yeah. I don't know. Let's see, is it just the 2, or do we have more than that? It might just be the 2.
I think it's just the 2.
Yeah, but that's still a nice sort of, I don't know, a little practical thing there. So we only have a few minutes. Let me see if I can find the openings of the other chapters. So here's chapter 4. And as I turn, you can see more. This looks, no, maybe it's not. It's hard for me to tell if this was written later. or not. It's got the same little, or maybe it's just a different scribe who's writing that. But I will, let me see, I can pull this up here. I want to draw your attention to the bottom corners, talking about how this book was used. These corners are this color because so many hands were turning these leaves, so get lots of dirt, lots of dirt from fingers. There is a manuscript scholar named Kate Rudy who was sort of the first person to do analysis of dirt in books. So she has done some really great work on that, and not only fingers but also kissing. She studies prayer books, so she's looked at the practice of people kissing and how that affects the illustrations and things there. Let's see. So here we have the beginning of book 4. Not quite as gorgeous as the other one, but we still have this very nice letter D there with a nice decoration. So that's very good. Oh, there's another question in I think this is about chapter 4 again. Clarify affinity. I think it's related, I mean, I don't know exactly, but I know that it's related to your not being too closely related.
Edward might know better than I, but my understanding is that consanguinity is the rules about the people in your own family that you're allowed to marry, and affinity has to do with the relatives of your former spouse if you're widowed.
Ah, okay. Okay, yeah, I can see that.
And the rules about that.
Got it. Okay, excellent. All right, it is 12:29. So I'm just going to turn the pages a few more times, and here, let's see, you can see the ink change. I love, one of the neat things about these is just seeing how the ink does change from page to page. So you have darker and lighter, and you can really see when people came in and, you know, perhaps changed hands, but also, you know, if they were worn down. There's more. Look at all of that writing, all these people reading this and studying it and adding their own notes.
And manicules down in the center column of the gloss on the left side, just another kind of mark.
Oh yeah, literally pointing out the special bits. All right. Yes, and it is 12:30. So this is such a huge book. I'm sorry we only had a time to scratch the surface of it, but I hope this was interesting. And thank you all so much for being here. And we will see you again soon.
Thanks, Dot. Bye, all.
Thank you. Thank you, Edward, for all your help.
Yes.